In our previous video, we have performed the hardware setup. We now have two virtual boxes. One is a target virtual box, and the other one is a development virtual box. Both of them are connected over serial port. Now, how can I debug the kernel with GDB? It is a three-step process. The first step is you need to compile the kernel with KGDB support. The second step is you need to configure the Linux kernel on the target to run in debug mode. Finally, you need to use the GDB client on the development machine to connect to the target via serial. So let's get started. I'm going to download the kernel from kernel.org. So I have the kernel.org already opened. So here I'm going to download 5.4.85. This is a file. So I'm downloading the long-term 5.4.85 kernel. You can pick up any kernel, but I'm picking up the. I'm going to move it to here. Extract this kernel. So you may need to install packages like ncurses development package and flex bison build essentials for this to work. So I have already tried out. So I have already installed those packages on the machine, on the target machine. So you may face errors if you do not install these packages. Let me see what I have in the history. I do not have that in the history. So you need to install build essentials. You need to install flex. You need to install bison. You need to install ncurses development. There's some live ncurses development. I don't remember the name. You need to install those packages. I have installed those packages. So if I say this are already installed. Now go to your kernel. Say make old config. This will take the configuration from the currently running kernel. Just say enter. And now you say make menu. Instead of make menu config, you'll say make nconfig. Menu config will not work because of the display thing. It will give you an error saying it must be at least 19 lines by 80 columns. And we are not going to install guest additions. We can solve this problem by saying insert guest addition and installing the guest addition. But we'll install the guest addition after we boot up the new image. So we do not want to install the guest addition now. So use make nconfig. Now we have this kernel configuration. So we are doing the first step. We are compiling the kernel with KGDB support. So these are the three options, compulsory options, which needs to be enabled. So F8, you can go into kernel hacking and then kernel debugging is there. Come down and search for KGDB. You have KGDB here. It's already selected. You have config underscore KGDB already selected. I can say F2 here. It will give me the option. KGDB is already selected and KGDB underscore serial console. I'm pressing F2. This is also selected. And you have next one is config debug info. I can say F5 and I can search for using F8. I say F8. I give debug info. And this is also set to Y. So this is present in kernel hacking, compile time checks and compiler options. If you search for, here it is, kernel hacking, compile time checks, and this one, just select yes. And you just need to say There are optional optional configuration. You can also enable and disable those options. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to say F6. I'm going to say enter, and I'm going to exit. Now we need to compile the kernel. I'm going to start compiling the kernel. Make J8. It failed with errors. I need to install libelfdev. Sudo apt install libelfdev. Also we need libssl-dev for the OpenSSL error. So we need to install these packages. So we are doing this fresh. So you are seeing these errors. I'm going to say make nego. So now it started compiling the kernel. I'm going to add those changes which I have made here. Ekin config, and you need to install, before doing make, you need to have packages install. So sudo apt install libssl-dev and libelfdev, as well as before you do make old config, you need to have the other packages like dkms. It may not be required. Flex, bison. I think this should be sufficient. Now the kernel has started compiling. It will take a while for the kernel to compile. Let's wait until the kernel gets compiled. Make command is done. Let's install the modules. Finally, run the make install. So in this video, we have compiled the kernel with KGDB support. So we have completed the first step of kernel debugging with GDB. We have downloaded the latest kernel, long-time support kernel, and then we have configured the kernel, compiled the kernel, and then we have installed this kernel. Now we need to copy this VM Linux onto the host machine. So I'm going to power off this, and we need to make changes in the VirtualBox settings for this to work. I'm going to power off this for now.